allows any place to do as they say if you're based on religion. If you don't want to serve people because of your religion, it's okay. And it's going to cause a humongous firestorm everywhere because, it's Final Four weekend. You have everybody coming in town, especially with high-profile schools like Duke, Michigan State, Kentucky, and Wisconsin, and all their fans from all the different backgrounds coming into Indianapolis, in a city that's supposed to, generate, I don't know, maybe $100 million in tourism and money over the next, just say, starting probably today through at least Tuesday. All the money they're going to generate for restaurants and hotels and just attractions itself is going to be, slighted and dented in a certain way. And also at the same time, NCAA headquarters is in Indianapolis. So it puts them in a very bad situation. And I wonder now, will Indianapolis get any more of the NCAA, venues or any type of events from now on because of the fact? So I think with them passing it, I don't think the state of Indiana realizes how much damage they're going to do and how much damage they have done for events like this and future events coming up in the near future.
I think you're onto something. You're onto something because it's just that not just with NCAA, but you got the Combine. All the events happen at Lucas Oil Stadium. I think it's a game changer because you have so many different people speaking out about it, and I think it's something that's, for the most part, people are, you have the Arkansas governor urging changes to that bill. You have people speaking out, talking about, hey, I'm not going to put my dollars there, or I'm not traveling there. I don't think there's any change. I would like to see if there was change that was going to be impacted before this weekend, but it's highly doubtful. You got
exactly.
You got greats like ex-NBA greats between Barkley and you got Reggie Miller, who's going to be, I think, the color commentator. You got Barkley in the studio. You got a combo of folks that are speaking out about it. It's a hot topic. It's trending everywhere.
Exactly, and it's taken away from what this weekend really is all about. And that's the four best teams in college basketball competing for a championship. And most importantly, you have one team who is literally 2 games away from making history. And instead of talking about Kentucky being undefeated or having potential being undefeated, we're talking about, a religious act freedom. We're not talking about the potential matchup between the 2 best big men that college basketball has seen and what NBA scouts are touting as, the 2 biggest dinosaurs that potentially can be found in Karl Towns and Jahlil Okafor. Instead of talking about that, we're talking about, people not being served because of who they are. And that's just a shame, especially with this weekend being the Final Four.
It is. But I will tell you truthfully, if we do focus on the game a little bit, I personally want to see Duke and Kentucky. And I guess most of America wants to see that. I want to see the streak. I just want to see that answered in the big game. So, what are some of your thoughts with the Final Four teams?
Well, if you look at the first matchup, you have Kentucky and Wisconsin. Kentucky's 38-0, 2 games away from perfection. Going against Wisconsin, a team they played in the Final Four last year. Wisconsin has 2 first-round NBA draft picks in Frank Kaminsky, who's between him and Okafor is National Player of the Year. Kaminsky is 6'10", big man, kind of with an old-school type game to him, but always comes up huge in big games, as Arizona on Saturday, where he dropped 27 points for the second straight year. You also have Sam Decker, a guy his last 2 games who scored a career high in both those last 2 games and has solidified himself as the guy that people thought he was at the beginning of the season as a preseason All-American because he's so versatile. He's, I think, almost 6'8", 6'9", and can do so many different things with the basketball. And you're going against the Kentucky juggernaut in that game that has NBA players just falling out of the rafters off that roster. When you have Willie Cauley-Stein as a first-team All-American, and it's the first time a guy's ever averaged under 10 points a game to be a first-team All-American, that just shows you the depth of how deep John Calipari's team is, and they run 9 deep. And it's just not 9 deep. It's 9 deep full of NBA players, potentially 5 or 6 potential top 30 picks in the draft this year. Calipari's just loaded up with all these guys. And then you have the second matchup, Michigan State against Duke. Duke with Jahlil Okafor, Tyus Jones, and all those guys. You know, you have Grayson Allen and those guys who, Matt Jones, guys who are potential first-round picks going against the team of Michigan State, who is led by Brandon Dawson, but don't have the big name, but it's Tom Izzo. And you know, with any Izzo team, they're hard-nosed, tough defenders. They grind it out, and they're physical, they're mean, and they're nasty. So you have two different types of games. Duke, a team likes run up and down. You have a team in Michigan State who's physical, and it's going to be enjoyable to watch. And that's what's something we should be talking about instead of everything else in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's true. But, I mean, the social issues you got to address, and they are being addressed. You know, I mean, you think about overall, you know, it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of turning back everything that was done for civil rights. You know, so I think if we do focus on the basketball, and the one non-Final Four question I have to ask you is, okay, at some point, if you were either the president of the NCAA or really you can only affect change on the NCAA through being the NBA commissioner, how would you rectify this one and done?
The one and done rule is the touchiest subject because, you know, you're telling kids they can't create a livelihood and be a professional or try to make money for their livelihood. You know, I had a discussion with a coworker the other day, and we were talking about the same thing. I was comparing the one and done rule to join the military. I mean, do you have to have requirements to join the military? Do you have to be a certain age? No, you just have to be 18 years old and not in high school. The same thing with the NBA. You're telling these kids to join the military with a potential chance of them, you know, rectifying their life and for a better way, or they can put themselves at war and risk their life. But you're telling an 18-year-old kid who can make money professionally doing something they can do playing a sport that you can't do it. So it's at the same time we wanted to make the college game even better because there's no point of a guy going to school for a year and it doesn't do anything. I mean, all it is a guy just, you know, he's not probably going to class. He's going to do what he needs to do, and he's out of there. You don't have those 4-year guys that we saw back in the 70s and the 80s and even to the early 90s. We don't have those guys that you can relate to after 4 years. You're not going to have the Christian Laettners who was there for 4 years, or you're not going to have the Patrick Ewing in the 80s or the Hakeem Olajuwons, or, you know, those guys who stayed in school at least 3 years. You only know a guy for one season. You know, it's very rare that you see a top NBA player, a top draft choice, stay more than a year or two. I couldn't even tell you the last time a senior was taken number one in the NBA draft. It just doesn't happen anymore. So the one and done rule, I don't think there's going to be a happy medium because the Players Association wants these guys in the NBA as soon as possible to make what they can off of them, and the owners really want more mature players in the NBA because with an 18 and 19-year-old kid, you're running a risk of them falling into a bad situation or falling in with the wrong crowd because they're not mature for all the type of money that we're paying them.
We've always talked about the shelf life being short for these athletes and, you know, preparing them for the next phase. But if you're only hanging out, if you're going to class for one semester, and this is a question that we've touched upon at least 24 times, you're only going to class for one semester. That's second semester, you're not in class. You're enjoying yourself. You're going through, you know, you're hopefully taking your team to the tournament, and you're out of there. Because, you know, players as early as today started declaring. I mean,
early this week.
Right. So, but the big question is, okay, so let's just say if the median is 4 to 5 years that they're in the National Basketball Association, what is being done to prepare these players? You know, I mean, I can understand you can put, hey, you must be 20, you must be 21, you must do this. What's being done to prepare these players after their careers are done?
I mean, you know, when the players get in the league, you have the rookie symposium, the same thing you have in the NFL and other professional sports. And basically, the team, and most teams, they try to get these kids around the right people. But you know, when you grow up, and a lot of occasions, you have your family around you, and they think they have your best interest at heart, or you have a group of people who think they have the best interest at heart. A lot of times, that's not the case. I mean, you see more guys nowadays in professional sports who are bankrupt within 2 years after their playing career is over because they didn't manage their money correctly, or they let somebody take their money and handle it in the wrong way instead of investing it, putting it away. There are very few Michael Carter Williams out there. You know, people know the story of Michael Carter Williams. His parents took his money and invested it the second he got his check. They just gave him a small stipend and invest the rest. That way, when his playing career is over, if something would have happened to him, he has his entire rookie contract, I think, sitting in the bank. The only thing that he gets the money off of, I want to say, is through the interest. That's what he gets paid off of. That's what he makes. That contract is sitting there waiting for him just in case it happens. You know, it's sad to see Allen Iverson have over $100 million. The same thing with Antoine Walker. Walker made $130+ million over his NBA career and is broke. That should tell you something. You know, these guys make so much money, and a year or two after you're finished in the league, you don't have any money left. You know, like look at Allen Iverson. Supposedly he's broke, and after all the money he made with the Sixers and the Nuggets and playing in Detroit, playing overseas, all the money he made with Reebok, and for him not to have anything, it's sad.
Yeah, it's totally sad, and it's sad that every other year on the ESPN 30 for 30, they'll have to keep updating it with more athletes that have, gone broke. But I think you hit it on the head where it's 3 years after they've retired. I think the number's up to over 70% of all athletes declare for bankruptcy. So besides that, and I guess to end on a good note, I mean, give me your picks. Or were you like 80% of Americans here, where your bracket was busted?
In my bracket, I picked 3 of the 4 Final Four teams. I picked Wisconsin, I picked Kentucky, and I picked Duke. The only one I did not get was Michigan State because I had Louisville. So I'm doing well in the brackets, and when it's all said and done, it's going to be Duke Kentucky on Monday night. And the streak of 76 is over. I think that Kentucky cuts down nets at 40-0. Calipari has the undefeated season, and this, I think, will be John Calipari's swan song at Kentucky. I think that once he goes 40-0, I'm going to put that we'll put a bold prediction out that he is going to walk away from Kentucky at the end of the season.
Really? And go where?
The NBA is calling. The Brooklyn Nets will be calling him. I think that.
So it's more of a coming home party for him also.
I think Calipari is a guy who loves challenges, and he has unfinished business. He didn't do well in the NBA. That's going to be hanging over his head. I think in the college game, what more does Calipari have left to do? He's already won, will be his second national championship at Kentucky. I mean, he's got the national championship, and he has an undefeated season. And what coach wouldn't want to go out undefeated? His last year of coaching, you're undefeated, and Prokhorov wants to sell the team, make it marketable. I mean, there's nothing against Lyle Hollins, the job he's doing in Brooklyn with the team he has. And we all know Calipari turned down the chance to coach LeBron James last year in Cleveland. But being in New York City, he's done it before. He's that type of personality that can do it again with all his connections. And if the Nets can just somehow hire a decent GM, which I think he'll probably be the guy in charge of player personnel, a $60 million paycheck to get him out of college, I think that's the right thing for Calipari. And I just have a feeling that there's going to be something else behind Calipari going to the NBA. I'm not saying there's nothing kind of suspect at Kentucky, but just look at Calipari's track record. That's all I'm going to say.
So this is your bold prediction. You believe John Calipari is, once he gets the streak, they win the national championship, he's heading back to Brooklyn I don't even know if we could say heading back because he was there when they were with New Jersey. But the one thing I will say to you